So I'm Christine Souza. I am an end-of-life doula, and I have a little business called True North Awakening. So I have been an end-of-life doula for about almost 6 years now, and I have been doing this death over tea for 2.5 years now, and it's been online, and it's been so fun to have this community. It's actually a global community. We have sometimes people from England, sometimes from Canada, Alaska, and then all over the country. And so it's been just this beautiful organic conversation, because being an end-of-life doula and having my own experiences with death that were either positive or not as good as I had hoped, I really felt like I needed a community. And so I created this space called Death Over Tea, and it's just been this beautiful organic community of just connection. And so just this January, Jump has invited us to do this in person. So we have our online community. Hi, come on in. So we have our online community, and maybe people will come in a little later. And then I have speakers that come every month, and I have a beautiful speaker here tonight, and I have an online speaker who's amazing next month as well. So I hope that you'll consider coming to that one. So it's just this beautiful community-centered way of connection and support, and I just really can't thank you enough, Darra. I'd love to introduce our guest speaker, Darra Wray. So Darra Wray is a business professional, senior care consultant, and caregiving advocate from Boise, Idaho. Darra has more than 30 years of practical business and finance experience and an MBA from the Anderson School at UCLA. She also has a lifetime of personal experience as a family caregiver and patient advocate. She developed a true passion for family caregiving and elder care services through her personal life experiences. In 2018, Darra became a certified senior advisor, also known as a CSA, and launched My Care Companions. The mission of My Care Companions is to provide education, tools, resources to family caregivers. In 2020, she actually founded LEARN, which I'm a big fan of LEARN. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. LEARN stands for Lifelong Education and Aging Resources Network, Incorporated. It's a nonprofit organization with a mission to help people navigate the joys and challenges of aging and caregiving. Darra received the Service to Seniors Award at the 2024 CSA Conference in recognition of her leadership of LEARN. Darra also co-authored the book, The Winning Strategies for Family Caregiving, Lessons from Family Game Night, to help families learn how to play together, to support their loved ones in the end game goal to have the best quality of life possible while preserving relationships and resources. She invites you to join her crusade to help individuals and families more effectively navigate and manage the aging and family caregiving process. So I would love to just introduce Darra. Darra, thank you so much for joining. I'm so honored to have you here. I mean, just reading this, I'm like, oh my gosh.
It is my pleasure. Christine said, I don't know how many people will be there. And I said, I talk to audiences of one. And some of the richest conversations, and it's truly my joy and pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So this is kind of an open forum. So I have some questions to ask Darra, but I also want to encourage each of you, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to let us know. I do, since we have our online community, I would like to, before you ask your question, I'll have you use the mic so that our online people can listen. But so this will be just kind of an ongoing conversation. I'll ask Darra some questions, and she's got some amazing information to share with you. So I just want to say thank you. So Darra, my first question to you, I think you probably get this a lot because it sounds like you've been on this journey for a while, right? This just didn't happen overnight. So I was wondering if you can take us back to the beginning and what first drew you into the world of caregiving and advocacy.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about what drew me into caregiving. And probably like most of you here, I didn't call myself a caregiver. I called myself a daughter. I called myself a wife. I called myself a mother. I called myself a granddaughter. I didn't call myself a caregiver until I was probably 45 years old. Like, I didn't identify as a caregiver. But my mother became physically disabled when I was 10. And she was actually a very public person, and so we had to do a lot to mask her disability but became her legs. She wasn't able to walk very far, and so it just was a part of the fabric of our life, helping to take care of our family. And I was 13 when my great aunt, came to live near us in an early assisted living community, and she had a stroke 90 days after she moved in, and was physically paralyzed and didn't have enough resources, and she lived with us for 3 years. So very early on, this was just part of the fabric of my life. And I realized my parents were older, their families were older. I went through experiences that many of my peers had not yet done. And I had learned all kinds of things, all kinds of lessons along the way, some of them really hard, and some of them really expensive. And I call myself the accidental consultant because really I was just helping family and friends, helping them navigate this challenging terrain as they were caring for their parents, caring for a loved one, trying to navigate perhaps for themselves. And I had a lovely friend who I was helping look me in the eye and say, I can't allow you to help me one more time unless you let me pay you. Because what you do is valuable, and I want others to be able to benefit from it, but if you don't get paid for it, that won't happen. So I've been part-time consulting since 2018, and really the advocacy, what drew me to advocacy is the desire to help people navigate more elegantly than I did, and to make fewer mistakes and fewer expensive mistakes than I did. And really there was a moment. Can I tell my moment?
Please.
So I tell stories, so you'll just have to stop me if you're bored. So my mother had passed, my father had passed, I'd been through a couple of aunts, a godmother. I mean, I just navigated this terrain. My husband was chronically ill when my daughter was a year old. My daughter was born with medical issues. I mean, I've done it all. I've done parents, I've done children, But my father-in-law actually had a massive heart attack in, let me think about the year, 1999. And he was given 5 years to live. If he had this surgery, maybe 10. And we became what I call an activated family now. You get that diagnosis, you are told something, and all of a sudden, whoosh, you are laser focused. And my mother-in-law was a legal secretary at the time, so we activated, and it's national healthcare decisions today. All of the healthcare power of attorneys were done. The financial powers of attorney were done. All of the documents, all of the information, everything was put together, and it was a big project. And we got it done, and we all went, oh, all right, we're ready. 5 years passed, and my father-in-law was still alive. And we were grateful. We moved our family here. We were grateful. We had, my children grew up with grandparents. 10 years later, my father-in-law was still alive, and now we started calling him the Energizer Bunny. And 17 years after his massive heart attack, he walked into Taco Bell Arena, it's what it was called at the time, and watched my son graduate from high school, something we never in a million years believed we would see happen. And 6 months later, my mother-in-law caught the flu and died 5 days later. And we were completely blinded by our expectation bias. We all expected my father-in-law to go first. We'd prepared 17 years earlier, so imagine how outdated some of that preparation was, because we didn't think about needing to keep that active. We had started living again, and what happened, I'm going to try to keep my French in check. It became a 3-month exercise in forensic accounting to figure out where the mortgage was, where the safe deposit box was, what bills had to be paid. My father-in-law was in no condition to take over anything, because let me remind you, 17 years ago, he was given 5 years to live. And so my husband had walked in the hospital as son, and after his mother died, he essentially walked out a conservator and took over full responsibility for my father-in-law. And at the time, I was the CFO of a pretty big nonprofit here in town at the time. And I was disgusted with myself. And I thought, God, I mean, you know, we all are doing our hair in the morning, right? Having a talk with yourself in the mirror. And I'm like, okay, how did this happen? If I had a board member or an accountant, an auditor walk into my office, I could have laid my hands on any piece of paper. I could have told them exactly where it was. And this was an unmitigated disaster. And I asked myself, like, okay, now, so like any good business professional, like, what went wrong here? How do I not do this again? And I realized that I was blinded by my expectation bias, and I did not have the tools I needed to keep that information up to date. I didn't have the knowledge I needed to keep that information up to date, and I just became committed to do it. Not for me, but for everybody else to not make the mistakes I did, and to share some of these lessons and help people think about these very difficult things, hopefully in very gentle ways.
Wow. Thank you. You know, I think that I learn best by making mistakes. Oh, someone's in the waiting room. Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of how I learn. You know, left to my own devices, I'll delay something that's uncomfortable, and so I learn a lot by fire, but I learn also by mistakes, and we have a lot of parallels. My grandfather had a stroke when I was 10, and so I spent a majority of my childhood in the nursing home and stuff like that. So yeah, lots of parallels, but yeah, beautiful. Yeah, what a journey, right?
And I keep thinking, for years I actually thought, well, okay, now all 4 parents are gone, and now, you know, I guess I'm done. And now what I've realized is I will never be done, because it is in my nature to be a caregiver. And whether it's helping my extended family, other people, I actually believe it's what I was put on this earth to do. So.
Are you going to talk about the thing you created, the thumb drive little dooley dolly?
I can talk about the thumb drive little dooley dolly. I can. It's actually not a thumb drive anymore, but yes, I can. So you want me to go there?
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So one of
what you learned.
yes. So one of the problems I had is, you know, when I was having this retrospective as a professional businesswoman, like, how did this happen and how did I not? And I realized, as I mentioned, I didn't have the tools to do that. So what do I mean? Like, I'm sure, you know, probably many people in professional settings, people who have worked before, like, you had a computer, you had a file system, you had systems and tools and resources and places to put things. We don't have places to put things. We're told to put it in a box or stick it in a drawer or put it in the attic or like, and it's over there and we don't want to talk about it anyway, so we don't. And I decided that I was going to solve this problem because I had all of these tools and systems at work that helped me organize all of my data and information and what I needed to manage the business of my business. I needed a tool to manage the business of my life. So I went shopping. And I got, you know, where did I start? Google, right? Data, management, family, beep, beep, like nothing there. And I went to Amazon, I'm looking everywhere, and everything I found was a paper binder, a paper document. The minute you write it down, it's old. And then how do you change it? With an eraser, with whiteout, with all this kind of stuff, it just becomes a project that never gets maintained. So I thought, well, I can do better than that. And I pulled out my business knowledge and I just created an Excel spreadsheet on steroids and taught myself HTML and did all kinds of things. And I had a couple of businesses, financial advisors and other people purchasing it from me to give it to their clients. But I was very committed to making it affordable, making it easily accessible. And when I went to the Small Business Development Center at Boise State to see what they could do, they couldn't believe what I had pulled off with Excel. And they're like, yeah, we can't help you fix that in Excel. You need a software product. So long story short, I actually partnered with a software developer here in town, and we built a product called My Data Diary that is a downloadable family information management solution. And it takes an investment of time, to get all of your information in there. But once it's in there, it becomes the most fabulous tool for your life. Mine is open almost every day. It's where my passwords are. It's where my documents are. It's where everything is. And you know, what kind of documents? Well, when we just listed our house for sale, we're moving. And when we listed our house and the realtor said, I need a copy of the easement for the house. I need a copy of the last appraisal and the this. I opened it up. That one, download. That one, download. That one, download. Put them to an email, send them back to her, and she goes, how did you do that? So that's the kind of solution it is. And it's one of those things, it comes empty. So if you don't spend the time to put anything into it, you don't get anything out of it. But if you invest in it, it's a great solution for that.
You know, it's a great gift you could give your kids. Like I was thinking as you were talking, I need to be filling it out for my stuff to just give it to my kids. What's it called again?
My Data Diary.
My Data Diary.
Yeah.
So is it an app?
It's downloadable software. Okay. It's a one-time purchase price. That's the other thing that I was really insistent on. It's not a subscription. You own your data, you own your information for as long as you have a computer that will use that software. And you download it from you purchase it on our website and you download it to your computer. It's Mac and Windows compatible. And you can, it's designed for flexibility so that if you're very risk-averse, security concerned, I actually had one client who bought a computer exclusively to do that. He wanted it connected to nothing else. So once we downloaded the software, that's all he used it for. I'll be candid. I know so much of my information is out there and I have identity protection and things like that. And it's 256-bit encrypted and password protected and all of the things it should be. It's not perfect, and I keep my database in OneDrive and I access it in OneDrive so that I can access it from anywhere, as long as I have my laptop with me and it's easy. So, but it's flexible. You can make it a solution that lives on your computer that never touches the internet. And if you're more of a risk taker, which apparently I now am, even though it's pretty safe, you can put it in Google Docs or in Google Drive or in OneDrive.
That's so cool. I've been curious to know all of the ins and outs of that program. So,
well, I'm happy to do a demo someday. We can have a workshop.
I'm just impressed that you were able to just create something like that, because just managing an Excel spreadsheet feels very overwhelming.
If you had asked me 8 years ago when I started this journey if I was going to be a software developer, I would have laughed out loud. No way.
I love that. We can stretch and still learn and grow and still manage to be creative and be of service, right?
Just looking to solve a problem.
That's right. Got a problem? Let's solve it.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask, I wanted to kind of circle around for this question about what are some of the biggest financial or logistical challenges families face that they don't anticipate. So having your personal experience, right, you have that lens to look through, but probably the people that you've supported, what do you think are the biggest obstacles?
So there's two, and we've already talked about one. First of all, you have to have the data and the information and the access to the data and the information. So not only do you need to have it or know where it is, you need to have permission and information. So whether it's healthcare information, you have to have all of your HIPAA permissions. You need to really understand your healthcare power of attorney. If you have a financial power of attorney, you need to understand how it's executed. Is it springing? Is it standard? How do all of these mechanisms work? And you need to know where all of the, I say bodies are buried, that's kind of crazy, where all the money is. Where's the money? Where are the assets? Where are the insurance policies? So many families really have no idea what they have, how it works. And the top 5 or 10% of the population have people, right? They have people who do this, that manage their business and manage their lives, and they have attorneys and accountants, and the top 5%, those people work together and manage that, and manage you. The rest of us don't have people, right? We might have an accountant, we might have an attorney, we might have a financial advisor, we probably have an insurance agent. Generally speaking, none of them ever talk to each other. And all of these things, especially at the end of life, toward the end of life, when you're navigating this, they're all very, very interdependent. And you really need to know what you have, what challenges there are, so that when you're sitting with those professionals, individually or collectively, when they ask you a question, you have, well, what about this? I have this other piece of information that I can bring to you. And actually, this is the consulting that I do with most families, in addition to just general care coaching. I help them gather all of these information and documents, help them assess what they have, what options they have with the resources they have, and what questions they should be asking their professionals. When I'm consulting, I'm not a lot of things. I tell people I'm not an attorney, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not an insurance agent. I know how all of these things work and how they work together, and I actually think it's one of the things my business background brought to my care coaching is this really holistic end-to-end view of managing the business of your life. And so that's how I really handle that. So that information and documentation and permission. I think the other thing that people need that they don't have, okay, squirrel, where did it go? It was a good one too. Hold on, I wrote it down because it's important. Wait, what question is that? Where is that?
The bridging business, logistical.
Oh, this is important. Wait, this is really important. You need to know what Medicare does and doesn't cover.
Yeah.
Okay? And this is the biggest gap that I think most people have. And when I am meeting with my clients, most of my clients are close to my age. They're the oldest children, right? We're the children. And I ask them, what kind of Medicare plan does your parent have, your loved one have? Oh, okay. Do you understand how Medicare works? Huh? Well, it's insurance. Okay. So it is insurance, but Medicare works very different than commercial insurance. And when I say the mistakes that I made a very expensive mistake when my mother-in-law was laying in a hospital. I was asked, do I want A or do I want B? And I evaluated that question based on my understanding of standard insurance. And I knew a lot. I was managing an insurance health benefits for a 300-person company. I knew a lot. And I answered the question from that body of knowledge, and it cost us $5,000. Because I should have answered it from the perspective of Medicare. And I didn't understand Medicare. So the first thing I tell my clients is, please go find out what kind of Medicare plan your loved one has and learn about Medicare. Make sure you understand how it works. Make sure you understand the options, and we spend a lot of time talking about that. And one of the biggest things that misunderstandings and misexpectations, Medicare does not cover nursing home care at all. Thud. Not a penny. Well, okay, that's not true. If you're discharged from the hospital after a 3-day inpatient stay, go read the Medicare. It will cover up to 120 days maximum lifetime. 120 days. And I have clients ask me all the time, well, how do I pay for this? Well, from your resources. What resources? Right? So then it becomes, well, most people, their primary resource is their home. Well, they're living in their home, so we have to sell the home, but I thought I was going to inherit that home. But this concept that, you spend down to where you then have no money and ultimately you're on Medicaid. But that's the biggest misunderstanding. People don't understand how Medicare works, and they expect that Medicare covers nursing home care or assisted living or memory care, and it does not at all. Sorry.
No. Well, can I just say something?
Please.
I also think.
Oh, let me give you the mic here, my dear.
Oh, sorry. I work with hospice patients
Yeah.
a lot.
Mm-hmm. You're good.
And if the person who's in hospice owns things, it's not a good thing.
So-
'Cause you end up having to sell everything to pay the bills.
It depends on what your situation is, but that is a reality. I think the important thing to understand is hospice itself is almost always free. Hospice care is either covered by Medicare, most commercial insurances, etc. It's the care around the hospice. It's the personal care and the in-home care. And there are all kinds of ways you can navigate this. And I say it's a bad word to a lot of people, but one of my favorite ways if somebody owns their home is to put a retirement mortgage on the home so they can pull their equity, otherwise known as a reverse mortgage. I don't use that word because people like that word. And reverse mortgages were not great products when they started. There was a lot of fraud and abuse. They have evolved so much, and if you get a good product with a good broker, retirement mortgages allow you, if you're 62 years old or older, living, and both, if you're married, both of you have to be one person has to be 62, you have to rewrite when the other one is 62. But allow you to stay in your home and pull the equity out of your home to pay for care in home. And then if you can no longer live in your home and pay for that care, you can sell your home, pay back that loan, and then use the rest of the assets to pay for care in a nursing home or to disperse the rest of your assets if you've passed to your heirs. So it's a very good product, but most people don't know how to navigate these things and how to marry. They might be eligible for Medicaid and they can still have a reverse mortgage, but they need to know how to make sure they never have more assets than Medicaid allows at the end of the month, right? So it's a very complex system. This is why I'm saying you got to bring your health and your financial and your legal and your real estate. All of these things come together. But there are solutions, but most people think about them from the perspective of a commercial loan, commercial regular benefits and health insurance, and it's very different. So that's my other big one, Medicare. Sorry, I had a squirrel moment.
It was
but it was
good. No, it's so informative. So good. So I kind of want to switch gears,
Yep.
And I wanted to ask you about the reality of what family caregivers are experiencing today. And so you've supported so many families, and your own personal family as well. And I'm wondering what you see are the most common struggles you see that caregivers are facing today.
So caregiving usually starts with a simple yes. Of course I can help you with that. Oh, and I can help you with that. And I can help you with that. And naturally, as someone's needs increase, your support increases. And the sense of obligation, worry about funding, worry about other things. Many caregivers completely get lost in the care. And it consumes them, and they forget to take care of themselves. And I've got a couple of thoughts on this, so I'll probably share a couple of things. And the first one is, we all get on an airplane, and they tell you, right, when the oxygen drops, please put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then put the oxygen on your child. If you are not giving yourself oxygen, and you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot take care of anyone else well. And so caregivers fall into this pattern of not caring for themselves. And statistics actually show that for full-time caregivers who are caring for a spouse, caring for somebody in a full-time family caregiving situation, a third of them die before the person in their care. And it is largely because they're not taking care of themselves. They're putting off their own preventative, their own medical, they're not sleeping, they're doing more than they can. So the first thing is really oxygen. Give yourself oxygen. Find time for respite. Ask for help. And then I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about winning. Our book is Winning Strategies for Family Caregiving, Lessons from Family Game Night. And I want to remind people to play and enjoy your relationships, because the other thing that happens with caregiving is it becomes all-consuming and you lose the daughterness You lose the wifeliness. You become a caregiver. And finding ways to make sure you're investing in the joy of the relationship that you have, that you've had, and continuing to invest in whether it's play or music, whatever those things are. I had a recent client of mine was considering really grappling with whether she should move her mother here. And she was flying there every quarter, and then emergency flights, and every interaction she was having with her mother was around care, stabilizing situations at home, or responding to an emergency. And I said, as you think about this decision, part of it is getting back to having the relationship you want with your mother. And if she's here, you can go to lunch. You can go get your nails done. You can go to tea. You can enter into casual engagements again that allow you to maintain that relationship. And ultimately, as a family, that's what they decided. And it's so fun to watch them enjoying each other again. And she still is a caregiver and a lot of care. She's spending a lot of time, but she still gets to be a daughter. And so I think that those are the two things, making sure you're taking care of yourself and that you don't lose the basis of the relationship that brought you there.
Mm-hmm. I wish I would have had you a few years ago. My own caregiver journey was, my father-in-law was living with us. He lived with us for about 3 years. And then my mother-in-law was living in a nursing home. And then my mother lived about 5 miles down, and she had end-stage renal failure, and she was not doing well. We were trying to keep her as independent as possible. I didn't do well. Mm-hmm. I didn't do well. And I love my sister so much, but she lived about 5 hours away. She got to be the fun sister. And I got really resentful towards, she got to come into town, she got to take mom to dinner and do all sorts of fun stuff, and I just got more and more angry. And so, and I love my sister dearly, and I really envied the relationship that she got to have with my mom, but I didn't allow myself to be a daughter. I was more of putting the fire out, trying to keep her alive, desperately trying to keep her alive. So.
And then that impacted your relationship with your sister.
Yes.
That hopefully you've been
We're
able to
good.
start working on or have worked through. But that is not uncommon. My husband had a situation with his brother, and it was interesting because in their case, my husband was here, brother was far away, and it wasn't until it got really, there was so much, and it was a lot of time that my husband was starting to feel a little bit of resentment, like, this is a lot, and I don't get to go on vacation because I used all my vacation to take dad to the doctor, and what we didn't realize is his brother was feeling so much guilt. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't, honestly, until we had, I'll tell you, I started keeping track. When this starts to happen with my clients, I have to tread carefully. This is my husband, brother-in-law, but, when this happens with my clients, I ask them to start keeping track of how many hours they're taking off of work and how much it's costing them, because there are things you can do as a family caregiver. As a family, you can have a family conversation and say, this is really taking a toll on me. I'm not able to do this. And you can make agreements as a family to say, well, when the estate settles, these hours will be paid at this rate, and that will be paid to this family first, and then we split the rest, right? So there's ways that you can do this and get in front of the impact on those family relationships. And I was just keeping track, just in case I needed to have a conversation. And I was prepared to call my sister-in-law, because that's how this works, right? I call her, we then talk about it, and we convince our husbands. But as it so happened, as my father-in-law went into kidney failure, and we put him on hospice, and my brother-in-law was able to come up, and he and I lived with my father-in-law at his home, and the two of us were tag teaming. And we were able to talk about it gently enough that when his dad passed, he made a token gesture of a relatively small asset. It was not a lot, and it wouldn't have nearly touched had I put dollars to the hours, but he made a token gesture and said to my husband, please just take that, because you have done so much. And it was like watching, it just went whoosh for both of them. It was fascinating. But that's the thing to watch for, because if you don't, there are relationships. I'm so grateful, Christine, that you and your sister were able to mend that and get through that. There are family relationships that are irreparably ruined. They can't be repaired from this. It's so much. And nurturing those relationships and making sure you're caring for them, because they're going to be there with you when the person you're caring for isn't.
It's so true. My sister, I would literally be on the floor in the bathroom, screaming, crying, yelling, and she would just listen and just love me. And, you know, and it's just really powerful, because she was powerless. She had a 10-year-old son. You know, she wasn't unable to do it. But I think that in reflecting back, you know, I could have done things much differently. But, you know,
well, and I think there's two words that are amazing too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even just the simple acknowledgement to the person who's carrying the burden and saying, I see you. I am not there to help. I know that. What can I do from here? Or maybe I can't do anything. Just thank you. Like, just acknowledging is a big part of it.
And she did, yeah.
Good.
And we're good. But oh gosh, it is tough when you're going through it. And I can appreciate, you know, you don't know what you don't know until you know, right? And so oftentimes, and oftentimes it's looking back, right? It's just looking back and saying, gosh, you know. So that's why I appreciate the work that you do, because, you know, having these experiences, because we never really know when you're kind of in the weeds, it's really hard to see out, and you're just surviving.
Well, and it's the frog in the pot, right? You put a frog in a pot and it'll sit there, because in a pot of tepid water. And if you slowly turn up the water, this is true, you slowly turn up the water, the frog doesn't register the change. And if you continuously just slowly turn up the water on a frog in a pot and it boils, the frog will die. The frog will not jump out of the water. So it's this, caregivers can become frogs in a pot. Like you just keep taking on a little bit more and you don't even feel the difference until it's too late.
I want to ask you, I don't want to forget to ask you also about My Care Companions, because that's another beautiful thing that you've created. Can you talk to us about
consulting that is that what you're thinking about?
Sure. Yeah.
So I consult with families as they begin to navigate this terrain. Sometimes I consult with solo agers, you know, people who aren't sure how to navigate when they don't have children. But oftentimes I'm called, sometimes I'm called at the very last minute. There's a crisis. What are we going to do?
Right.
And I help families understand what they have, what information they need, what steps they should take, and I connect them with resources. I told you, I'm not a, but I know a lotta. So I always give my clients I prefer 3 recommendations for any kind of resource. I educate them on what I'm telling you all kinds of stories, right? This is what you need to know, this is how this works. So I educate families, and then sometimes I walk with them on this journey, and I will facilitate family meetings with them. I will facilitate sibling meetings, help the family navigate. It's amazing what happens when you bring an outsider in. Families are a lot nicer to each other. These are tough things, and there's emotions, and there's money, and all of these things. There's sadness, there's grief. And when you bring in somebody from the outside who's recognized and certified and knowledgeable, it's amazing. Most people listen a little bit better and are more open to looking at options and evaluating scenarios and playing a few games. We play games sometimes, but really my consulting, you know, I have 2 kinds. I have the kind where I really want to get my ducks in a row. I want to understand what's where, and I'll sit with people when they're well-bodied and helpful and help them do their My Data Diary and get everything together. And then I have the side that, okay, now I'm an activated family and I need some help navigating the terrain, and that's what I do.
So, can you think of, just off the top of your head, like 3 things that you feel like everyone should have prepared?
Okay, today is National Healthcare Decisions Day.
Thank you.
If you do not have your healthcare power of attorney completed and living well, your advance directives, you want to have your advance directives. Please don't treat these as documents. They are documents. Advance directives should be conversations. You want to be sharing with whoever is your healthcare power of attorney what your values are, what your wishes are, and you should be having those conversations ongoing. So your healthcare power of attorney, without question, I think is one of those documents. The other document, and it's a if this then that, then if this then that, but I'll call it estate plans. And estate plans might be as simple as, well, let me put it, estate plans, if you have a great deal of wealth, can be quite complicated and should be detailed plans created with an attorney and a financial advisor, and you should be working through this in clear ways with all of your advisors. Or they can be simple. My father-in-law had a lot of very wealthy friends. He was not a very wealthy man. He was a very simple man, a very happy man. But he would say to me at least once a quarter, I need to have a will. Dad, you don't. No, I do, because person Y has a trust. I need a trust. I need a trust. I need to put things in trust. You need to understand the laws where you live, what is required, and I would simply say to my dad, I called him Dad, he's my father-in-law, I'd say, Dad, how do you want to split the assets? Well, 50-50, of course. Do you have more than $11 million? No. Well, then you don't need a will, because we're in Idaho. And there are 2 kids, simple, no other heirs, no wife, it was very simple. So, but know what your estate plans are. That would be my second thing. And the third thing, I'm going to actually say, know what matters to you. We're here for death over tea. And people ask me all the time, do you talk about death all the time? You do, don't you?
I
don't understand. We talk about death all the time. And I do. And my husband knows what I want. I know what he wants. We talk about these things and not just what we want in terms of how we want the final disposition, but how we want to live our life. What is important to us? And very often when we're caring for someone who is chronically ill, terminally ill, end stage of life, we get focused on more days. And I challenge you all to think of it as more good days. And so, in addition to your power of attorneys, in addition to your estate plans, know what a good day means to you. And what a good day means to the people you care for. And it's probably going to be different. And it might even be surprising what is good to you versus good to somebody else. And it's okay if it changes over time. And so, my father-in-law, I'm going to tell on him another story because I can't help myself. I speak sometimes, and I speak a lot now actually, and I occasionally get asked, who do you admire most? I could pick Mother Teresa, I could pick Barbara Carnes, I could pick all kinds of people. And I say I admire my father-in-law. He was the simplest man I know. He was born in Weiser, Idaho. He lived within an 8-mile radius of the house he was born in his whole life. He had been on an airplane 3 times. He worked the land as a farmer and a rancher, never made very much money, but was the happiest person I knew. Truly, the happiest person I knew. And that was such a lesson for me because he had very little and wanted for nothing. It was fascinating. But when I stopped to think about what a good day looked like for me compared to what a good day looked like for him, they were very different at the time we started talking about this. And this became a very important conversation as he was in kidney failure, and every doctor's, we had a post. So if a post is physician's orders for scope of treatment for chronically ill, and allows your physician's orders to follow you, so you don't, if you have an issue somewhere else, you don't have to be resuscitated, other things, we could get into that. But he had his post, and every time he had another episode of some kind, we'd pull out the pink paper, and he'd go, "All right, daughter-in-law, you're gonna make me look at that again?" "Yes, father-in-law, I am gonna make you look at this again." Because he was very clear he didn't want dialysis. And I was very clear I was gonna ask him that question every single time he had an episode until the moment they told him he had to have dialysis or he was gonna die. Because until you're faced with that moment in time when it really is, if you do this, you will live, and if you don't, you will die, you don't really know what you will do, right? And so I would just pull out the paper, and it became, kind of silly, I told you game night, but it became kind of a game. I'd pull out the paper, and we had this whole script that became pretty funny for everybody who watched, which was occasionally for quite a few people. And in the end, he didn't change his mind, but he appreciated that I asked, and that I was open to letting him, right? So knowing what a good day means to you today, and is that still what it means to you tomorrow? It's okay, but know what it is and know what you want.
So good. I have so many friends who are in the medical field, and I have quite a few friends that are nurses in the ICUs. And they have conversations like that in the ICU when their loved one is hooked up to tubes, unresponsive. What do you think your mom would like? What do you think your mom or dad would want to do at this point? And they have no idea. Those conversations should not be happening at that moment. So I really appreciate what you said about, we get to change our mind at any time, and I don't like to suffer, I don't want to suffer, right? So that's kind of that's non-negotiable for me. And so what it brings up, it makes me think about quality of life, right? And so, we get, I might think that this might be intolerable for not being able to eat, or having to be artificially fed or something like that. But maybe I want to stay here for something. And so we get to change our minds. But when we are in that situation in the ICU, there's no choice, right? So somebody is making a choice for you, and so that's why these conversations are so important early on.
And the other thing I would say is, not only is it important for you to share that, for you to hear that, to have these questions, but when you are the loved one standing in ICU and you're asked that question, it is a gift that person has given to you to have the confidence to know the answer.
Yeah.
To know they don't want that. And to be able to stand up and advocate for what they want and have the documents to back it up. And that is exactly what we had to do. And luckily we didn't have to fight very hard, but we could not, in the disaster that was my mother-in-law's illness, I never found her healthcare power of attorney. I couldn't find it. I spent 6 hours the day before she died scouring her office in her home to find it, and I never found it. But I knew what she wanted because I was there when she executed it. We had had many conversations, and so before the doctors came in to talk to us, we had a family meeting to make sure we were all on the same page, so there was absolutely no question about how we would answer, because if there was a difference of opinion in the family with no document, there's a problem. And if we were united, there was no conversation because we'd had these conversations. But we were able to advocate for her rights, and even when one doctor said, well, we could go and do a thing and see if and we all said, no. That's not what she would want, and we're going to honor what she would want. Some of the hardest decisions, probably the hardest, I've made it a couple times, so I can't say the hardest, but this is among the hardest conversations, hardest decision you'll ever make. But if you know the answer, you can make it. in respect for them.
I lead a grief group, and last night, one of the ladies was talking about.
Hang on,
because
Karen.
They had never had the discussion. And so.
Give her the,
So this very same thing happened last night in a grief group that I lead. They had never, her and her mother had never had the discussion on what she wanted or what they wanted, the mother and the father. She had a stroke. They did not know what to do, so they put her on life support for 5 days. And then the doctor said, there's really nothing more we can do for that, for her. And that she is carrying such guilt because she feels like she killed her mother. Because they didn't have any, she made the choice that she didn't have a quality of life, but they didn't have a conversation. So she gets to carry that around now, the fact that she feels guilty, that she pulled the plug on her mother.
and it's really interesting.
And she didn't have, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's emotionally very different to say, please don't put that person on life support versus remove life support. It's actually very emotionally different to say, no artificial, don't respirate, don't, versus yes, take that feeding, take the tube out, take the, just think about that.
Yeah.
Very different. And that's what she's struggling with, because she was on life support for 5 days. And you had to say remove.
Christine, when you were doing the Good Death course,
Mhm.
and you mentioned that if you, as a family member, cannot make these decisions, because when it comes to this time, you're also losing a loved one. And it's okay to have a friend be your power of attorney spokesperson. I don't remember the name.
Healthcare power of attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, so can you speak to that?
Yeah.
That it doesn't have to be a family member.
So I would love to speak to that. It doesn't have to be a family member. And sometimes it shouldn't be a family member. And a lot of people think it should always be the oldest child. Like, really? Like, think about who your children are. And the important thing is choosing someone you trust, who knows you well, who will have the strength to do what you want, even if it's not what they would want for themselves. And this is a really tricky thing. It can be a friend, it can be a neighbor, it can be a sibling, it can be a parent, it can be, there are some professionals who will do this if you are alone. It should be someone who can do those things. And don't let anyone tell you it should be your child or it should be a particular child. And yes, we do talk about death all the time in my house. And my children know where the estate plan is, and they know all of these things. And my daughter was, she's 21 now, and it was 3 summers ago. She was between high school and college, and I made her sit down and learn how to do our financial management at home. And we do it in Quicken, and I made her learn it. And she's like, oh my gosh, Mom. And I said, Maggie, if something happens to both your dad and I, you're gonna need to know what is here, where it is, who the professionals are, more than just a notebook with names. Like, you're gonna need to know how to do this. And she looked at me and she goes, fine, I'll do this part, but I am not pulling the plug. That's his job. And I said, well, alrighty then, you know? She's like, I can't do that, Mom. And I said, good to know. But this is really, she knows, know thyself. She knows she can't do that, would not be good at that, would struggle with that. So make sure, before you name somebody, that you've had the conversation with them, that they're willing to say yes, they believe they can do it. It's a big responsibility.
Oh my gosh, so good. Before I forget, I want to talk about this.
Okay.
So Darra has co-authored this book called Winning Strategies for Family Caregiving, Lessons from Family Game Night, and we're actually going to be giving a signed book away this evening at the end. So can you talk about this, the creation, and I'm really excited to dive into this. So yeah, please.
So the book actually was a follow-on to a presentation that Dee Childers and I started as educators for LEARN. And we were trying to find a way to introduce some of these really tough topics in kind of a playful, memorable way. without exhausting your audience after about 5 minutes. Because, man, these are hard things to talk about. And I don't know what inspired me, but I thought of a Jeopardy board and all of these things. So we started playing these games, and you could, 6 categories. 2 of them are around kind of relationships and self-care and family dynamics. 2 of them are around financial legal, and 2 of them around medical. And we created this game that we did as a presentation, and people were begging for more. Well, could you write it down? And how do I get more? And how do I read more? And so we took this presentation that on difficult topics was the most fun presentation we ever did, was so interactive. We got invited back every year to do the same presentation every year because it's different every time, because it's very interactive. Every year for the SMART conference, we did this for 3 or 4 years. And so we decided to write this book, and actually I was at a conference, and I told a woman I met who became our 3rd co-author. Her name is Ann Kenny, and she's a geriatrician. I met her at a conference, and I said, I have a book in me. And she said, well, then write it. And I said, and she said, no, Darra, you can do this, and tell me your idea. And so I shared the idea, and she goes, well, I'll help you write it. And so then it was, okay, wait, now that could be magical, because I've got the business background. Dee Childers is the care manager, and she has a master's in counseling. And then we have a geriatrician to do the medical stuff. Okay, this is pretty cool. So the 3 of us collaborated on turning this idea and this presentation into a book. And the book is really designed around the concept of play. Games. So the first part of the book is about 100 pages, and it's really about choosing your team, assigning their roles, and building a game plan. So you kind of go through the foundation of what you need to understand. The most important thing, I started, choose your team. Caregiving is not a solo sport. It's not an individual sport. This is a team sport, and you've got to think like that. Then the next 24 chapters are the 24 games. And the way it is organized, each chapter is named for a childhood board game. So think about Blind Man's Bluff. Okay? What is Blind Man's Bluff about? It's about not being able to see the thing that's right in front of you. The unwillingness to see, the decline, the difficulties. So each of the 24 chapters has a game name, so that you can associate this lesson with a name that you can remember. And because we're kind of silly, we give you a little bit of history of the game. And then each chapter has a story that's either a personal story or a composite from our years of working with families. We then share some information that will help you and give you some action items in each chapter. And it's organized in such a way that once you've read the foundation, please don't read it in order. Please go to the table of contents and find your problem and go read that chapter. You don't have to read them in order. All of the chapters stand alone.
I love that so much. What are some winning strategies someone can take away with them this evening?
Winning strategies that you can, really the big one is build your team. Okay. and assign those roles, and get your documents in order, and get your healthcare power of attorney. Yeah.
So I want to go back to your father-in-law because he's my hero. And when I think about what a good death looks like, right? He got to call all the shots, and in my mind, having a life of living the life that he had, he sounded very happy. So when I think about a good death, I think of living well. We can die well. And so I was wondering if you can speak to what does a good death or aging well look like for people? What kind of recommendations can you help us to understand what that might look like for people?
I got a couple. And one is, it's funny that I said blind man's bluff. Like, it is really trying to see what's in front of you. We don't want to see it. And having a good end of life, aging well, having a good death requires you to be able to see the need acknowledge the need, and then prepare for the need. I think that's a really big one. I think the other one is, this isn't an individual sport. Please build a team around you. Give yourself your oxygen. Make sure you're breathing and caring for yourself. I think the other one, it's one of my favorite games in the book. It's actually not a childhood game. It's a more current game. It's called Would You Rather, and a lot of times it's an icebreaker game and things like that. Cocktail party game. I'll give you an example. Would you rather mow your lawn with nail clippers or paint your house with a child-sized paintbrush? Go. Right? These are both like yucky. Like, but if you had to choose,
Clippers. I'd go with the clippers.
and see, I'd go with the paintbrush because I don't want to bend down with the clippers. Like, I can stand up, right? But I respect that
I
you
want to be
the
grounded. I want to be on the earth. Yep.
Okay.
I want to be grounded.
I respect that
Thank you.
love clippers. But aging and caregiving and navigating this terrain, you're going to be making choices between 2 things or 3 things, and it's quite possible that none of them are lovely, right? And so thinking about how to look at it in the most positive way possible, judge it by is this going to get me closer to what a good day means to that person? Is this going to be healthier for us as a family unit? Is it going to allow us to end this game, finish this game with our relationships and resources intact as much as we can? That's how you need to look at this. You know, as you approach every one of these questions, would you rather? Is it going to get me to my finish line, which is to end with my relationships and resources intact?
Good. Yeah.
Can I interrupt for just a second? I think
Yeah.
I think Janet's got a question.
Oh.
Janet's got a question.
Keeping us accountable. Thank you.
Hey, Janet, do you have a question? Oh, let me unmute you. Oh, you'll have to unmute yourself there. Okay.
No, I'm okay. I thought I lost the sound, but my speaker went dead, so I'm good. We haven't seen your face yet, Christine. It'd be nice if we could see you a little bit too. There she is.
Did you have a question, Janet?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you for joining us. Okay. Oh, shoot. I muted you again. I muted you, Janet. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said it's my sister and my nephew that are online with us as well.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank
and
you all for being here.
yeah, thank you so much. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to, you can raise your digital hand, or you can put a question in the chat, or you can come on camera and don't be shy. Janet, thanks so much for inviting your family. I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks so much. So I want to ask you a question about all the people that you have worked with, your family, all the clients that you've had. What's the greatest lesson that they've taught you about life and living?
I have definitely become a better listener. And I think the greatest lesson is how individual everyone really is, right? What I want can be so different, and it's okay. It really is about independence and a choice to live with agency and be able to make choices that are meaningful to each of us as individuals. And so I think for me, being able to respect that and help families respect that to the end. And it's hard. And I think maybe the thing that I've learned is just how hard it is, and I can recognize it now. I did it too. Like, I knew my father was making huge mistakes with money, huge mistakes with relationships, and I didn't want him to make those mistakes. I wanted to save him from himself. He was not a minor child. He reserved the right to make stupid mistakes. I get to make stupid mistakes. Do I want you to tell me not to do something I want to do? So unless that older adult or whoever you're caring for does not have the mental capacity to make choice, it is hard to watch people make bad choices. And so I think that might be the greatest lesson I have learned, is that I can provide all the education, I can provide all the support, I can provide all the care, and ultimately people reserve the right to choose, and I need to support them in that.
Yeah, so good. So good. Reflecting back my relationship with my mom, I wasn't ready to let her go. So I was desperate to keep her alive. And she was giving me these subtle hints of, I'm getting tired here. I don't want to go to the hospital. But I was like, you've got to go. What are we going to do? I can't leave you on the floor. You know, I'd find her, she'd be on the floor for like 16 hours. And, you know, it was, but finally, 3 days before she passed, I was like, Mom, I'm so sorry. The last 6 months were just hell. I'm sorry I put you through that. And I said I wasn't ready to let you go. And she said I wasn't ready to let you go. So really, those last 6 months were a gift.
Yeah.
But looking back, she was ready, I was not. And so I think it's really important to have those conversations, like, where are we at?
And it's really about those conversations, and I guess it's funny that you say that, Christine. These are like little more winks, right? Whatever we want to call them. But I actually had this conversation with a client today. And I actually do share a lot of personal experiences because I think it helps people understand. But this is one I haven't shared a lot, and I'm going to share it twice in one day. Who knew? But this client of mine, her mother has just completed cancer treatment and announced that she won't do that again. And it just has declared. And this client of mine is like, we need to convince her to do that. And I said, well, help me understand where you're coming from, right? What does that mean? Why is she saying that? So we had this conversation. It was kind of a counseling session, not a counselor, but, and I said, so let me tell you a story. And I said, when my mother passed, I was only 24 years old when my mother died. I was already married, and I feel very grateful that my husband had a very, very good relationship with my mother. So good that we were desperate to keep her alive. I could not hear her say, I'm tired. I absolutely know my mother knew she was dying. She knew her body was giving out on her, and she was trying to tell us what she wanted, to tell us what she wanted to gift certain people, to tell us and we just would shut it down and say, I can't, we're gonna go to this, we're gonna get this treatment, I was so desperate to keep her alive. I could not hear what she needed to say. Okay, oh man. My husband heard her. And when none of us could listen, he sat across from her, and I didn't know this until after she died, because she died unexpectedly relative to a very long illness. It happened very quickly for something that was a little bit unrelated. And he activated as soon as she was gone and called the funeral home and ordered this kind of flowers and that kind of flowers. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, that's what she wanted. I said, what? And he said, we had a lot of conversations, Darra. You couldn't talk to her, but I know what she wanted. And he carried out her wishes, and she had little friendship teacups, death over tea, and beautiful little teacups. And he asked her to please make sure that she asked him to please make sure that each of her friends chose one. That's what she wanted each of them to have a friendship cup. And these very, very personal, sentimental things that I couldn't hear. And I wish I had. So I don't have guilt. I don't use that word. I have regret. So I regret that I couldn't have those conversations myself. I'm so grateful that he did. So with this client today, I said, is it because, she actually said the words, I'm so desperate to keep her alive. And I told her this story, and she looked at me and she cried and she said, thank you, I needed to hear that. She said, because no, I don't want to miss that. I don't want to miss those conversations. And I actually encouraged her to reach out for some counseling. This is grief she needs to process. Like, I can't do this for her, but I needed her to see it so that she could get some help, so that she can have that kind of exit, a good death with her mom, who has an incurable form of cancer and has decided she wants no more treatment.
I'm so proud of myself. I normally cry often. They're just like, they're there.
Can I say a little bit about LEARN?
I was just going to ask you about LEARN. Thank you.
Well,
Yes, please.
So LEARN, I've been a consultant. I created this software, and LEARN came to be, this nonprofit came to be because I was out networking with professionals all over the valley. And we were doing a really great job of educating each other. It was awesome. And we would go to all of these.
Which you do. It is so true.
And I was meeting amazing people all over. And this one was healthcare oriented and this one was finance oriented. And because I was doing everything, I was meeting the coolest people all over the valley, and almost all of them knew each other. And they were so knowledgeable, and they were so giving of their time, and they were educating each other. And we would sit at tables like this and then go, oh my goodness, if only we could figure out how to get this education out there. If only we could figure out how to get this out. And the reality is, in this space, so many of the providers and the professionals in this space are very small. They're small businesses, they're micro businesses, they're consultants, they're entrepreneurs, they're franchise owners. They're small. It's Katie and it's Christine. It's me, and we were all trying to do that. Like, you're here tonight. We were all trying to do that, and you put all this energy into planning an event and marketing an event and booking a location, and there are 10 people in this room. Oh my gosh, that is amazing, because usually you do all of this work and you get there and there's 1 or 2 people and you're thinking, yes, I am not by myself. But the reach of these small businesses is so small. You just can't get there. Your voice is too small. And so I thought there has to be a better way. And ultimately, I'll skip the long, boring part. I found a way. And I said, what if instead we created a nonprofit organization, brought all of those professionals together from all of those different disciplines in a membership organization where they paid, and then they gave away time, and then they give us some sponsor dollars. They participated in this effort to educate the community. And in exchange, they get a richer networking organization because it's across all of the disciplines, and they get additional exposure and a bigger voice to share their information and to have exposure. So this idea is now a 160-member nonprofit organization here in Boise with a mission to help people navigate the joys and challenges of aging and caregiving. We provide free education to older adults, their family caregivers, and the professionals serving them. We have a video library that's free, available 24/7, 365, with more than 300 videos on health, wealth, lifestyle, caregiving, end of life, community resources, technology, and elder abuse awareness. 8 channels available with more than 300 videos. We have a health and resource fair program where we take these resources out into the community, a grant-funded technology education program, and it is
And the book club.
And a book club. And it is the greatest honor of my career to lead this amazing group of professionals. And we are maybe looking at the possibility of expanding into other locations as a chapter-based organization with some national support. So really amazing, because what I hear when people see what resources are there is, oh my gosh, every city needs this. Every community needs this. Why doesn't every community have this? And my goal was that when somebody here in Boise or Idaho said to their doctor, their lawyer, their employer, their neighbor, their grocer, their dog walker, their hairdresser, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm going to do. Insert aging and caregiving problem here. I wanted the automatic answer to be go to Learn. Start at learnidaho.org. You will find qualified resources, information, local, to help you understand your challenges, find help, and then contact those resources. So that's what Learn is.
So good. Such an honor. Can I just ask, if you could leave families with one piece of wisdom as they walk this caregiving journey, what would it be?
Can we do this one?
Yes, please.
That one's done?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Don't underestimate resilience. And I'm going to share another story about my mom. She was a remarkable woman. She died when I was 24 years old. I mentioned she was a very public person. She was actually a comedian. And I grew up in Las Vegas, and she was on stage, and she was very well known. She was recognized in the community. But she lived the life of an entertainer, and we had years of feast, we had years of famine, we had years of health, we had lots of years of illness. But she had the most amazing, positive, she believed without question that the only way her life was going to be happy is if she chose for it to be. And she actually, I remember as a little girl, it was the 70s, right now? Right, 70s, 80s. So she had these big, giant, pink sunglasses that she wore. And I remember it didn't matter what it was, whether it was, whether it was, something had gone wrong with the business, something had gone wrong with the house, something had gone wrong. She would literally say, all right, I'm just going to look at the world through my rose-colored glasses. And there is something, right? They say there is something about that physical action of reframing. And she didn't know that's what she was doing. She was just like hiding, I think, sometimes behind her sunglasses. But she literally reframed it and took a deep breath and said, I need to think about this differently. And when she was very, very sick, she needed quadruple bypass with a valve replacement. She had been morbidly obese her entire life, and there wasn't a physician who would touch her. There wasn't a surgeon who would touch her in Las Vegas. So we went to a hospital in Los Angeles, a research hospital, and what should have been they were willing to do the surgery. She did okay, and then she didn't do okay, and what should have been a 10-day stay turned into a 75-day stay with so many complications, and it was a research hospital. So I'm sure those of you I know you have people in medical here, they're not known for their bedside manner. Right? Teaching hospitals, research hospitals. So, I don't know, we were on day 50, and she had 3 different infections, and she was on IV antibiotics, and she was allergic to them all, and she was covered head to toe in hives, and her heart was doing this, and her this was doing that, and she was disgusted, absolutely disgusted. And she said, I walked in that day, and she said, all right, she called me Daisy, all right, Daisy, I need you to go to the nurse's station. I need you to get a big piece of paper and the biggest black marker you can find. You did not argue with her when she gave these kinds of instructions, so off I went. And I said, okay, Mom, I got it. She said, what do you want it to say? Only positive attitudes welcome here. All right, I wrote it down. She said, now you take that back and you get a couple of nice pieces of tape, and I want it on my door. Alrighty then, so off I go, I follow instructions, and it's a teaching hospital, so it was maybe 10-15 minutes before the first victim came in. And, showed up, starts looking at her chart, starts reading all the things that are wrong with her, and she said, "Did you see the sign?" And he goes, "Huh? What?" She said, "The sign, the sign." She said, "Get out." And he laughed, and she said, "No, I'm serious. Get out." She said, "You are not going to come here until you can talk to me, and we can talk about a plan for how I am going to get past those numbers." And she kicked him out. So she became a celebrity in that hospital pretty quickly. But it was maybe the greatest lesson for that group of interns and residents, because they came in and understood. I want to be clear, she had no misunderstanding about how sick she was, none. She knew exactly how sick she was. She knew it was quite possible she would never leave that hospital. She knew the only way she would is if she believed she could, and if the people who were treating her were going to help her build the plan to do so. And so she became her own advocate with resilience and with an insistence in positivity. This sits in my office. My husband gave me these for Mother's Day, and it's a constant reminder for me that I get to choose. I choose how I show up in the world. I choose what kind of caregiver I can be. And even on the worst day, if I take a deep breath and put on my rose-colored glasses, I can find something positive, a way forward. I can put together a plan. May not be a great plan, but I can put together a plan, and I can put one foot in front of the other. And this legacy of the rose-colored glasses, I first wrote an article during COVID, as I was sitting in lockdown, hadn't seen my friends, feeling sorry for myself, and I wrote a blog post about putting on my rose-colored glasses, and I needed to be grateful for the snow on the trees and the dogs at my feet and the health, that I didn't have sickness in my house, and the fact that I was sitting there with a steaming cup of coffee. This was all to be grateful for. And my brother saw that, and he has a business in Louisiana. He's a notary in Louisiana. Louisiana's weird, y'all. Louisiana's still under Napoleonic law, and seriously. And notaries in Louisiana are kind of like paralegals, and they do a lot of things in really bad times. Like, he sees a lot of people at their worst when they need legal documents for terrible situations, and it's bad. And he hears a lot of stories, and he started giving away rose-colored glasses and sharing the story with his clients. And he and I talked about it, and he gives away rose-colored glasses from the Denham Springs Notary for some of the people in the worst times. And he told me a story about a woman who, he's a 24, part of the reason he gets the bad stuff is he's a 24-hour notary, and he's mobile, so off he goes. And he went, thanks for coming, he went to this woman's home, and it was a client. He'd seen her before. She'd been into the notary before, and she looked absolutely horrible. And he asked her what was wrong. It was Christmas Eve, actually, and she was in her pajamas, hadn't brushed her hair, needed a document notarized, had clearly been crying. And he sat down, and he says, "I'm not leaving until I understand what's happened here, and why are you so upset?" And essentially, she said, "My daughter got married 5 days ago," and he said, "Well, you should be joyful." And she said, "And her husband killed her the next day." And so her daughter had been murdered, and she said, "I don't know how I'm going to get through Christmas." So after he got the document that she needed taken care of, he said, "I'll be right back." And he went back to the notary, called his wife and said he was going to be late for Christmas Eve dinner. that went over pretty well. She forgave him later, but he went back to the notary because he really felt like he needed to go back. He needed to give her something to help her get through the night. And he went and he grabbed sunglasses and he grabbed copies of the blog post, and he showed up at her house and he said, I want you to read this, and I've told you the story. I'm going to give you these glasses and I'm leaving some for your family because I want you to think about how you can be there, how you can make this Christmas, how you can get through. And he wasn't going to leave if she wasn't safe, and he felt like she was safe. And the next morning, she sent this picture of herself and her other daughters. I can't tell. Oh, yeah, you can see. And her grandson. And actually, I'll do it this way. You can all see. And they were all wearing the rose-colored glasses and holding the paper, and this shifted for them. And it was a very physical thing. They knew they had to make a choice and they could make it together. And this was so compelling for me that I brought for each of you a pair of rose-colored glasses. And they are yours for the taking. And there is a suggested donation of $10 to LEARN. So, but do not feel that you need to make a donation. They're my gift to you.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. So Darra, can you tell me, how do people get a hold of you? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I got 3 websites. It's easy. You can find me at mycarecompanions.com, mydatadiary.com, or learnidaho.org. There are flyers in the back. There are business cards in the back. I give my phone number away to everybody. Just call me. I'll be there.
Before we end, I just want to see if anyone has any last-minute questions. I know I want to honor Darra's time, but Janet, Kevin, Karen, thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us. I appreciate you guys coming. Do you guys have a question? You have a question, Kevin?
I just more of a thank you for what you're doing. I work as a nurse, and I had been an EMT up till last August. So I've seen a lot of families, and I've seen that, been on the front lines. In fact, when I started as a nurse, it was September of 2019 in a local hospital, and the floor that I worked on, we actually were the main COVID patient floor. And so I got to see a lot of that firsthand. I ended up having to be the nurse on several patients that I was the person doing the unplugging, and how hard that can be. And just the comment on having those documents up front is so important. And I appreciate all the comments that have been made tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate that. And thank you for all the work that you've done and continue to do. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's see. Anyone else have any last-minute questions?
End-of-life planner toolkit that each of you are welcome to take from Compassion Choices in honor of today, National Healthcare
Decisions Day.
Decisions Day. Thank you. So feel free to take a copy. Their website is on the back where you can download.
Isn't it ironic? Today is National Healthcare Decision Day. We have our Death Over Tea. Seems very timely.
Does everybody know why it's April 16th?
No.
It honestly is.
Yes.
There are only 2 truths in life: death and taxes. So you do your taxes on April 15th, and you do your National Healthcare Decision Day on April 16th.
Good to know. I don't know if that's true.
It is.
It is true.
No, I mean, I don't know if there's 2 guarantees in life, because I used to say taxes and death, but there are some people that are wiggling out of their taxes, and so death, I think, is the only
That may be
guarantee.
the only one.
Yeah.
Yes, you are correct.
So one of the things I just wanted to mention is that we do gather monthly here at Jump, and I hope that you will consider coming back next month. Next month we have an amazing speaker. Her name is Dr. Gwen Galloway Salazar, and if you are interested in hearing a dynamic speaker, she is doing some amazing work. She started a nonprofit called In Their Honor, and it's supporting veterans at the end of life. And if you have anyone who is interested in coming, we would love for you to bring a friend next time. She's going to be amazing. I did want to share Karen, who's kind of my partner in crime, dear friend. She has a life cafe that she does monthly at the Collister Library in Boise, and that is the second Tuesday of every month from 6 to 8. So it's similar to a death cafe, but it's a life cafe, a little bit more upbeat, lots of education, and Karen's just a beautiful person. So I'd like for you to consider. There's flyers in the back.
Here to both of those.
Thank you.
With that, it's so important that we all talk about how precious every moment is, because to be honest with you, this is what we have right now. This is the present.
Yeah.
And what an amazing opportunity to celebrate someone's birthday who's amongst in our midst here, Miss Christine Sosa.
You're kidding!
We are celebrating your birthday because even though we're a month late,
Oh my gosh,
we
that's
have
beautiful.
we have to celebrate every moment.
Thank
So
you,
happy
Karen.
birthday.
Oh
And
my
there's
gosh.
lemon cupcakes for everyone.
Treats for everybody. Thank you, Karen. I did want to say one more thing. I also do a Good Death, Good Life Cafe, very similar to what Karen's doing, but it's at the Victory Branch Library, and that is on the last Wednesday of each month. So lots of things if you want to continue the conversation. Before you leave, did you have a question?
When is this meeting?
So this Jump meeting is the, third Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. We have speakers every month. We're having Dr. Galloway next month, and then we have actually an incredible mortician who is going to be talking about green burials and other options. That'll be the following month. So we've got some incredible speakers. Darra,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say thank you so much. I love you even more now that I just can't thank you enough. I
Oh, this is
appreciate you.
wonderful.